director of the Ghost Story. This is my senior project. I'm in Senior Humanities. And this would be the time for you guys, everybody. Get out your phone. Get out your phone. I know all you have them. And turn it off. So don't put it on vibrate because we need it to be off because the waves will go through and then the sound people will hear it in their like comms and everything. So if you guys can please turn it off, not on vibrate. Also, please do not take any flash photography or any photography at all, really. At the end, there will be a bow where you guys can take photos. What else do I need to say? This show runs for about 40 minutes, and thank you so much for supporting Franklin's Performing Arts, and enjoy the Ghost Story.
You're too popular. Yes, you are. It's horrible.
Nonsense.
No, it's the truth. It's really horrible for a girl to be like you.
Thanks.
Well, what I mean is nobody can ever get within a mile of you. The worst part about it is girls hang out with you just as much as the rest of us do.
You think it's weird that girls like me, George?
It isn't weird, but it's been pretty painful for me these holidays.
What are you talking about?
Well, that's what I came early to tell you.
I came early to tell me what you're talking about?
No, Anna, it's just that
You began by saying it's horrible that anyone seems able to stand me.
It's horrible that I always have to see you in a crowd. If there aren't 4 or 5 guys around you, then there's 4 or 5 girls. And if there aren't 4 or 5 guys or 4 or 5 girls, then there's 4 or 5 with both of them.
But look, George, look under the tables and under the chair and under the
What
couch.
for?
For all those people you said are always around me, it's weird, but you do seem to me to be the only one here.
Yes, just this minute, but you as well as I know that the bell will be beginning to ring and soon they'll begin pouring in here. And when they're here, they stay and it's horrible.
Aren't you a funny boy?
That's just it. I wish I could see any fun in it. Why, if I'd known it was going to be like this, I wouldn't have came home for the holidays. Why, you don't know how much I look forward to coming home and seeing you. That's all I really thought of the fall term.
You don't mean you thought of it during the football season?
No, yes, I thought of it even then too. I just kept thinking, wait until the Christmas holidays come. You'll get to see a whole lot of Anna. You'll get to dance with her a lot, take her out on a lot of things, even spend some nights alone by the fire. And look what happened. You were booked up solid for every last thing a person could hope to take you to. I've never gotten one clear chance to dance with you without some frenzy bird always cutting in. And every night I found you at home, I just had to be an audience member and sit 17 rows back and listening to the bickering that went on. Tonight's my last night. My train leaves at 9:51 and I won't see you again until June, after commencement. And some of them are sure to be coming in. That's why it's horrible.
But they haven't started coming in yet, George.
Yes, but they will.
Well, why don't you...
Anna, it's just this. I want you to understand the position I'm in. I want you to understand what I have in mind. But what's the use? Some of them are sure to come in. You couldn't sing Word You're Not Home?
Well, you see, Linda Cole and Tom Bannister and Mary...
That's it. That's my regular luck with you. Isn't there any way to get rid of them?
They are friends of mine, you know, George.
Are they?
Very well.
Anna?
Yes, George?
What I was saying, I came to talk to you early to tell you I look forward to the holidays because, well, I thought it would be the time I'd be justified in getting a chance to say something that I wanted to say to you.
Yes, George?
Well, I've wanted to say it ever since, well...
Is it something about your studies?
No, it certainly isn't. Well, I've wanted to say it for a long time.
How long?
Ever since that day you wore a blue dress.
What sort of a blue dress?
It was blue.
With flounces and lace on the blouse?
Just a sort of blue.
But I haven't had a blue dress this year.
It wasn't this year.
Why, the last time I wore a blue dress was that summer on the lake 3 years ago.
That's when it was. It was that day we went canoeing for water lilies? That was the day it happened.
The day what happened?
The day you wore a blue dress.
Oh, yes. That one was blue linen. It was another one with flounces and lace on the blouse.
Well, ever since that day, I thought there would be a time that I would be justified. And what I'm trying to say is, I was young. We both were, in fact.
Yes, I suppose we were.
I suppose I hardly realized how young we were. I thought I was a grown-up man, and I was only 19. Looking back on it, a person sees how much they still had to learn. When I think of all the stuff I've been through since then.
You mean at college?
And here at home too, like what I've been through the holidays, for instance.
Have you? Why, I always thought you do so well, George.
I mean, not getting near you. You know what I was talking about.
But that couldn't be very severe,
Yes,
George.
yes, it could. Because it was. And my father stopped off a day to see me in college, and I told him.
Oh, nice.
We had a serious talk.
Oh, I'm sorry you're serious, George.
It was business-like. About my future in business.
Oh, yes.
When I get home with you, he's going to take me right in with him. He thinks I'll get along all right. He's going to give me 10% interest in the business, Anna.
How lovely.
So that's why I said I feel justified in, in saying what I want to get a chance to say to you.
Yes, George?
Well, what I mean is, I'm sure to have sufficient means to settle down, as it were. And so...
Yes, George?
Well, you see, that day you wore the blue dress. I hadn't had this talk with my father because, well, I hadn't had this talk with him until this October, in fact. And so I...
Yes, George?
The time's come, Anna.
The time has come? Yes, George?
Anna, the time has come. The time has come where I want to ask...
The time has come.
Anna, the time has come...
Yes?
I knew it! I knew they'd be pouring in here just this instant. Oh, my heavens, I know.
We had no classes today, and we were bored, so we decided to visit.
How nice of you.
Oh, hello, George.
How do you do, Mary, Grace?
George, you got to say goodbye.
Gracious, I hope we're not interfering.
No, not at all.
Of course not.
Here's some more.
College English, George. Didn't you just say here are more?
There certainly are.
Well, what are we
believe you could. It's falling apart. Why would it take Edison himself to put this back together again?
Well, that's all the dancing you'll do tonight, lady.
But you're men. Why don't some of you fix it?
Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall.
Oh, gosh, why don't you fix it?
And all these horses, all these men couldn't put us together again.
Tiresome.
Thanks, ladies.
Well, what are we gonna do? Let's play buttons. Buttons. Who's got the buttons? Hush.
Well, I couldn't think of any way to amuse you all. It still struck me a good night to go home and get some sleep. I thought you had to start back in college. I do. I meant everyone else.
What's the matter with you, George? I mean, with your mom?
Nothing. I only meant that.
Oh, do hush. Can't anybody think of something we could do?
Not a thing.
We can play charades.
Charades are terrible.
Well, let's just sit around and talk then.
No word or no.
Well, what do you want to do, George?
Well, I was just thinking, it does seem a good night to go home and get some sleep.
Why, of course. We have 2 tables with George left over. He has to go pretty soon anyhow, so he need not to play.
I need to play what?
Bridge. We have just enough for 2 tables without you.
Hey, stop it. Just because you guys can't dance doesn't mean you have to play bridge. Come on, you don't have to do the same thing night after night, do you?
Well, what's your idea? What do you think we'll like better?
Let's tell ghost stories.
That's
I'll tell you a ghost story. I'll show you if it's silly or not. I'll tell you a ghost story that the first time I was taught in college, well, they got so nervous that they didn't know what to do.
What did they do?
They got so nervous that they
Had to go right on the bed, didn't they?
well, let's just see what you do.
I'd like to hear a ghost story that would make me nervous.
Let's see if you can. Shall we all gather around, George?
Yes, please. And we don't need so much light, just this lamp.
This goes like this.
Okay.
The way to think about a story like this is to, well, think about it in the dark. This is a true story. It happened a little out of the country from Wilmington, Delaware.
Wilmington, Delaware? My goodness, how fearful. Delaware!
Give the poor thing a chance.
It was 14 years ago, this winter, and the facts are known by pretty much everyone in Wilmington. If you ask, he'll tell you it's so. Well, this house was an old frame house. It was long and
Rambling. Long and rambling, George.
yes, it is. It was, because after what I'm going to tell you happened to it, why, it had to be torn down. Of course, after that, no one would live in it. But 14 years ago, an old man lived there. He lived there all alone, and after dark, nobody ever saw a light on in that house. Nobody knew anything about this old man, except that he would kill any cat that just happened to come into his yard. So the neighbors watched one night. They heard a cat meowing under a bush. Then they saw a dim figure of this old man creeping and creeping towards the bush. Then they heard the cat go off with a terrible scream, and the old man was capering around, wringing the cat's head. Now, this old man,
Well, go on, George.
this old man never came out in the daytime. Nobody ever saw exactly what he looked like, except he had long, scraggly white hair, and his complexion was some sort of a fishy white color. But night after night, the neighbors would watch, and they would see him prowling among the bushes and the underbrush in the big weedy yard. And then they'd hear something go off, a terrible scream, and he'd be capering around, bringing something's neck in the dark. So they kept wondering and wondering. And one night, when the wind was moaning, and the sky was covered with thunder. The rapping on the wall was always the same. Just 3 times. Always. Just 3 times.
See here, I'm beginning not to like this a bit.
Listen, will you? Can't you listen?
We are listening.
Go on, you're listening. What's the matter with you?
Then listen. On the 13th of March, exactly 13 years after the old man was killed, there were some workmen making repairs to the plumbing in that rickety old house where he had died. Now, these workmen...
George, did you say these workmen were plumbers?
Yes, they were.
Why they had to be plumbers, didn't they? He said they were there for the plumbing. How could they help being plumbers if they're there on account of the plumbing?
What does it matter? Go on.
It was an old plumber and a young plumber.
Just 2 of them.
Listen! Now, these 2 plumbers were all alone. All alone in that empty old house where the
But there
murder...
were 2 of them. How could you
Listen,
have
will you?
all-
These 2 plumbers were making repairs to the bathtub where that old man's body, I mean, his remains were found 13 years before. On the 13th of March, the exact same night they were working there now. Now, the only light